is going on, Wolfpack Nation? Welcome to another exciting episode of Tuffy Talk. And I do guys say that if you have been a follower of Tuffy Talk for quite some time, you know that roughly around this time, it's usually pretty tradition around here to have a Joe here on with us. But oh, wait a second, Greg. Greg, seriously? I said to bring on the real Joe. You brought on the other Joe. Come on, man.
Hey,
like you brought in this guy. This guy, he says that ribeyes are better than New York strips, man. Like
he's not wrong.
Yeah,
he's not wrong.
I do agree. I vote team ribeye too. Flavor all day. So yes, no.
I love a good steak conversation, but that's not what we're here for tonight, boys.
Yeah, no, we could, and I mean, obviously, you know, Ovies and Joe Giglio here tuning in with us have definitely been having those conversations. Been very, very fun, to say the least, on the YouTube channel. So first, got to ask, how has it been so far with the YouTube angle? I mean, it seems like you guys have been hitting your stride. You know, I mean, I know you guys came out with your interview with Governor Cooper today, which was great. I'm sure talking about the I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but talking about the legalized sports betting, if I had to guess.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pain, gambling. It's been really good. It's 5 weeks, and you know, we've sold some ads, which is really good. And we found a way to do the things that we like to do, and the things that we feel like we're the best at, and to continue to do them, and without some of the things we don't like to do. So that part of it's been rewarding.
I bet number one on your list is setting your own hours.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm a morning person, and you know, Leighton knows. He's like, will you come on Tuffy Talk? And I always say yes, of course. But then I'm like, you guys record at night, don't you?
Yeah. I'm like, I know it.
30.
Again, unfortunately, you know, we don't do this full time. We would love to do it full time, but you know, the hashtag goal, right? So, but yeah, Joe, I know it's typically been tradition for us to kind of have you on right around the time conference realignment talks start to come up, and you know, I know that now we kind of brought you on a little bit later, where kind of all those talks have kind of pretty much died down. You know, and I know that you know, listening to a variety of different you know, media centers, such as, you know, you and OVs talking about it, you know, Adam and Gold, and you know, etc. You know, everybody who kind of comes to me talking about it, to me, pretty much my summary of it is just same year, same evaluation of can we get out of it. And basically the same conclusion of, nope, can't afford it yet. We're going to keep things the way it is. Would you say that's a good 15-second summary of the conference realignment talks?
Perfect, Leighton. You're done. No, the grant of rights, obviously locking these teams in until 36, which is a long time away. And before you start thinking about breaking such things, it'll probably be 27, 28. When you really start maybe getting those legal wheels in motion. The one thing to look at, though, is can you get enough schools to dissolve the actual conference itself, which would be wild if you think. So that might be a step that they take. I don't know. I'm not advanced enough in my Netflix law degree to figure all of that. But I do. It's what's holding the ACC together. It's also what's holding them back. So it's kind of a double-edged sword that John Swofford had created for the ACC, and it saved them at the time. After Maryland had left, there was some uncertainty, and this is when it originally agreed to in 13. But now, you look at a 20-year agreement, and you're going, man, that's a long time, especially when the Big Ten's knocking out 5-year deals and their contracts growing exponentially while yours is going up, $3-4 million a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Looking back at it, you were just wondering, you get why they did it, but why did they do it? Because I'm looking at it right now. I'm going to be almost 60 by the time this thing expires, and I'm not that old right now. So just to think about how, 13 more years, you got kids that are in the 4th and 5th grade, won't even be in college by then. So what is there, if we get to 8, is that the magic number? And then can we dissolve this? Or because you hear all the different fodder out there.
I think there's probably more to it than that in terms of I think it's the number is bigger than that. We'll see, because there was a revised articles. Don't forget, grant of rights after the Notre Dame deal and after the ACC network deal. So there's probably more to it. The document we have is from the original deal, and it wasn't ever supposed to get out, which was kind of funny.
Right.
So we'll see what more information we can get, and that's also part of it. Like, right, like these schools really don't want you in their business, as we just saw the PGA Tour and Live Golf come to a legal agreement that basically sold the PGA Tour to Live Golf and the Saudi public fund, because these entities don't want their business out in the open, and
Right.
I think that's part of why you might not see a legal challenge anytime soon. I do think it'll be Notre Dame, our favorite. Next topic, next question. I do think it'll be Notre Dame who ultimately tests it, because they did sign the grant of rights, but theirs is on a limited basis. So they're the ones, to me, that have always made the most sense to legally go after it. Now, of course, they'd have to be motivated to legally go after it. And given the new college football playoff format that's coming up, where they can still make the playoff without joining a league, I don't see them being in a big hurry to test anything legally. Also, a little known secret about Notre Dame, given the Catholic Church and all the money that it has in real estate, and Notre Dame football and athletics actually isn't that rich. Sam Hartman in Wake Forest may disagree with me right now, but they're actually not. It's kind of one of their problems, and it's kind of, look at their coaches. That's how they roll. They all are always trying to hire low on the low end of the salary spectrum coaches. And ever since screwing up with Charlie Weiss, I think that probably is, but that's the way they are.
Do you think that the way the stipulation is written, that you have to be like a conference champion to host a game? Do you think that's enough of a one, since they will never be able to technically host a game in the college playoff and get that revenue? Do you think that's enough of a swing?
No, they can host a game. They can host the first round game. Yeah.
Okay.
They can't have a bye. They can't have one.
Oh, that's what it is. Okay. All right.
So, the thing about the college football playoff format and where it goes from here, that part's going to be that is also one of the aces in the hole for the ACC. Because if Texas and Oklahoma, as they go to the SEC, if they go 8-4 or 9-3, and they're not in, you got to remember, financially, Texas and Oklahoma actually don't need the SEC and their money.
Right.
They're doing
absolutely
prestige. They're also doing this. Am I allowed to swear or no?
Preferably not, but if it happens, it happens.
No, like that. Like as state fans, we all kind of know, like, why is Texas doing something when they're the richest school in the country? It's like, oh, it's because Texas A&M has something that they want, and that's exactly why this is happening. And Oklahoma is going with them because they didn't want to get left behind financially with the Big 12. Not that Oklahoma needs to have their hands out. So if those schools, USC and UCLA and others to look at when they go to the Big 10, if they get left out, or even maybe a Tennessee or someone along those lines is left out, all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, am I better off in the Big 12? Am I better off in the ACC? Am I better off in the Pac-12, 10, whatever it will be, where we have access on an easier path to the playoff than these other schools? Or is it truly just about the money that you can make in your television contract with either the SEC or the Big 10?
Well, it's interesting too, as well, because I guess a little bit earlier this time last year, all the talks was talking about West Virginia as well, which was a name that was talked about a lot of bringing into ACC, which I think is kind of funny right now, just because with their football program, their coaches, on the hot seat right now, in a lot of West Virginia fans' eyes. And so, I mean, I'm kind of looking at West Virginia, and especially now with all the publicity with the men's basketball program as well right now going, I mean, would you say that West Virginia, in terms of a name of potential in the future, will still be one that might be considered by the ACC?
I think West Virginia has made the most sense all along, but the ACC, for whatever reason, and the number one reason is academics, has always turned their nose up. And
Louisville.
Yeah. It's like, at a certain point, you have to realize, in 2003, Debbie Yao told me that when she was at Maryland at the time, she said they specifically added Boston College because of Wake Forest felt like if we're going to add Miami, a football school, then we need to balance that out with a quote unquote school that fits their academic profile with the league. And I love Boston College. I'm from the North. I love going to games there and going to campus there and going to Boston, but they've never really fit in the ACC is the truth of the matter.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And
the only redeeming quality of Boston College is Boston.
Yeah. And it's a pretty big redeeming quality though.
Yeah. I love it.
No. Arguably the biggest sports town in the country. So, and I would say there's not really. Yeah, exactly. So I do want to kind of ask you, Joe, as well, because it's not a secret at all that you and OVs are being NC State grads, but definitely being in the journal space, you definitely have to learn to play Switzerland, be a little bit neutral for sure, and so. But I do got to ask that if State this upcoming year, finally, after 30 years, wins AC championship in football, men's basketball, or baseball, will there be a tear that comes down you and OV's eye? Like, will there be a tear just like the rest of us?
Yeah, I went to Charlotte to see Elliott beat Duke for sure.
Okay.
No,
I like it.
Always wanted it to be Elliott, but no.
Likewise.
It's so crazy. It just doesn't make any sense statistically when you look at our 5 schools that all of them have done it in one of those 3 sports, at least a tie. Since the year 2000, and NC State is the only one that has. It just honestly, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, no. Well, it's especially because again, I mean, Avent has been to 7 of them, and it's hilarious to me that especially in a sport like baseball, where baseball is just
crazy, right?
It just goes one way or the other. Like, there is no predicting it. It just happens. And so to literally say I could flip a coin and I'm literally going to flip heads 7 times in a row, it's like, man, there has been one of those times that's flipped tails, not one of them. Like especially 2021 when we lost to Duke 1-0. It's like, dude, that whole year, if you had told me that Duke is going to only score 1 run and we're going to face an AC championship game, I would say, all right, we're selling the house. We're going to Vegas, putting the house on State to win. There is no chance we're not going to get at least 2 runs. No chance. And it makes no sense whatsoever. And that's why, again, it's just like everybody's saying, and me included, that definitely is frustrated by the 0-7. It's like, but I mean, like, how much could Avent really have done to really move these things in our favor? It just I don't know, just it like that is just an example of it would just for some reason not meant to be, but yeah.
Well, looking back at that game too, is we had a chance to tie it up on a fly ball and we didn't tag up, and you're thinking, it's no big deal, we'll get a run or 2, and you didn't. So, but
by an experienced Austin Murr too, right? Wasn't that the guy who was on third that made the mistake?
I feel like that was who it might have been.
Austin Murr.
But
either way, no matter which 9 of them it was, they're all experienced. They wouldn't have made that mistake any other time. It was just a mental lapse. So, yeah. So I mean, talk to me, Joe, in terms of which team. If first of all, do you think that this year, 2023, 2024, is going to be the year? And in which sport do you think that it has the best chance of that curse being broken?
If my favorite Garner baseball player, Jackson Lucas, ends up at NC State, they'll do it.
Okay.
Okay. It can really pick. He's doing some workouts right now down in Atlanta for a couple of different teams, and it'll be interesting to see which way he goes. I'll be rooting for him either way, but I would love to see him pitch for NC State next year. And he's a special kid.
Mm-hmm. Before we continue, I want to take a quick second to tell you about our sponsor, Flatlands Jessup Insurance Group, that has your whole world covered, with agents in 5 offices throughout eastern North Carolina to help you decide how much coverage you need, offering policies for home and auto, recreational vehicles, commercial, crop, health, life, and employee benefits. They are able to combine options to find a comprehensive solution that works for you. Flatlands Jessup protects the things you love so you can spend less time worrying and more time enjoying them. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at Flatlands Jessup. You can also visit their webpage at www.flatlandsjessup.com. So please make sure to go and check them out.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
baseball is one of those sports where there's just like I know there's so much movement with the portal and NIL to a degree, but I feel like baseball has surpassed the movement, and maybe it's just because of percentage wise on players. Like, I think state football has done a really good job of holding their guys in the program. Basketball is a much smaller sport, so percentage wise, you'll see more movement because there's only 12 guys on a roster, 13 guys. And then baseball, the last 2 years, you had 21 new faces last year for baseball, and I thought, following the team pretty closely, that seemed to be their biggest hurdle was that chemistry. And then towards the end of the year, you saw them playing more cohesively. Just ran into a hot South Carolina team, but with all that being said, do you like the movement with the portal? Like, do you prefer like teams being like having more core players together? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I believe the players have earned the right to move around with the same freedom that the coaches do. I think what you've mentioned about Dave Doran and what they've done on the football side is impressive. It hasn't happened in a lot of places.
No.
I really believe the ACC, we talked about how maybe keeping teams, a playoff path is a way to keep teams. Honestly, I think the ACC should be the first conference that goes and makes players employees and pays them and shares the actual revenue. Because I just, these schools, you're going to keep chasing your tail in NIL. You're going to keep chasing your tail in players leaving because, well, I got a better deal at, what was it, LSU for Tommy? And
yes.
it Green, next year. And I'm not blaming those kids. They should go and do what they feel is best for them. But I think, to your point about getting a kid out of high school and developing them, especially on the football side, I would love to see 4-year contracts. If you really believe in it, MJ Mars, I'm going to give you a 4-year deal. And if it's Brennan Armstrong, I'm giving you a 1-year deal. And I would go a long way in college sports, because now all of a sudden, if you want to leave and you have a 4-year deal, but guess what? We have a contract. We do. And if you want to get out of it, well, we can arrange that, European soccer style. If Alabama is going to pay you that much, cool, let them do it. But
and I think it works both ways, right? Because you get these coaches that are forcing these kids out of the program. So if they have a contract, it kind of gives the student some protection too, right?
It works both ways. And I do think there's listen, the inertia right now in college sports is not the answer. Just throwing your hands up and saying, no, we can't professionalize it. No, we can't have contracts. No, we can't share the money, because it'll do, all of these other unintended consequences. What they're doing right now is insanity. It's just insane.
Yes.
It's a tax on the fans is also what it is. Hell is a tax on fans. Fans who are already paying for scholarships to now pay for their money on the side, where the money shouldn't be from the side. As we learned in the pandemic, the students are the ones, the players are the ones who kept the lights on. There were nobody else on campus. It was them. So in order to cash a check from their television partner. So I have very little empathy for these schools it's supposed to be the academic opportunity. What about the poor volleyball team? Yada, yada, yada. Listen, the market's always going to find its level. And I think baseball, NIL is going to be the most fascinating example of that. LSU doesn't win it this year. Are you going to keep paying money? I don't know. I don't think so. The market always finds its level,
Right.
So it'll be interesting. We can also take it from NC State basketball angle, right? Like, they went out and got guys, and they didn't spend as much as a Miami, but they still spent money, and they spent it wisely, and they had a really good team. But you look at some other guys in some other schools where they went out and got guys, and you're like, that guy's not any good. Miami obviously not only spent the most money, but they spent it wisely. So
absolutely,
that's where I think coach comes in, and you go, all right, I trust this coach. They can get players out of, like Dave. I can get players out of high school. We can develop them. But that's where Dave's probably next step is getting that receiver, getting the running back, getting the left guard out of the portal, and it becomes pushes you over the edge, as we saw with hoops. A lot easier.
Yep.
with fewer numbers in hoops, and obviously the market and the demand in football is greater.
Yeah. And you brought up an interesting point, because as the average fan, we only have so much, spendable income or entertainment dollars. And so it's, do I put my money into tickets, right? Because I want to go to the games, or do I put my money into tickets and NIL to bring in better players, so then I'm getting better return investment on my entertainment dollars? And so, to your point, I think that the universities do need to pony up, because you have these endowments, and I get what the endowments are for, but what are you doing with millions and millions of dollars just sitting there in the bank, just accruing interest? Like, it will just sit there. Like, what is that money really going to do at some point?
Like,
yeah.
And I got news for you. It's raining.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting too, because the biggest beneficiary of COVID was the University of Miami, right? Because of the hospital down there donated like $40 million into the athletic program. So like, it was insane. I'm like, well, when can like state get a hospital so they can fund, their athletic and there's no rules against that. So it's like the rich get richer, it feels like. And so the playing field, when you talk about the NIL portion of it, so they can build, with that money you can build facilities. Then you have the TV contracts. There's no wonder why the disparity range is so wide.
Yeah. And the only other thing too, Joe, and we'll definitely talk about more men's basketball, football here in part 2, but the one question which I want to ask you too, and this is kind of another point of topic that comes around talking about Elliott Avent, with 2 years left on his contract, is there definitely has to be a adjustment to the times. I think, again, Coach Doran's done a great job of that, bringing in some high quality transfers to really fill some gaps. Obviously, Keats this offseason, I think, has had a master class of an offseason that we'll talk about for sure. But do you think that with Avent, and again, I don't necessarily talk to him, I don't know, I'm sure you definitely have stayed in touch. Do you feel confident enough that, because in today's day and age, unless you're Clemson, unless you're Alabama, where you don't necessarily need to rely on the transfer portal, in today's day and age, it's almost that you have to go and you have to be involved. You have to be in there, and you have to be ready to talk from an NIL perspective. And so I think that's kind of the worry, is that since Avent's so old school, is that could he adjust to today's day and age and how NIL is king right now?
Yeah, I don't see any problems with making an adjustment. The question is, where does the money come from? Because the NIL money hasn't hit baseball, and you got to remember,
right?
Top, however many players end up signing out of high school and never playing college baseball. College
right
doesn't produce any revenue. Might at some SEC schools, ticket revenue might, but still probably not. You guys probably have been to the games at Kentucky and some of the Mississippi State. Those are fabulous facilities, but they don't play enough games. They don't have enough seats to make money. So
sure.
You're only getting like 25 home games.
Right. But the market finds its level. That to me is going to be the most interesting part of it. Because baseball is wild if you think about it. Nobody really even has a full scholarship.
11.7.
Right? Like, it's not
crazy.
So we'll see. It all ends up sorting itself out. But no, you mentioned there's 21 new players this year. That was Elliott said to me, it was his biggest challenge this year. Just trying to get guys, and you have so many new faces, and it's really hard. But I think they've proven that Gino Groover's a transfer, right?
Yeah, came in from Charlotte. Yeah, a lot of the team.
Yeah.
A lot of you had a lot of guys that were transfers on that team.
Yeah,
so a lot of freshmen too.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, it'd definitely be interesting to see for sure, kind of what happens with 2 years left, and the fact that he more than likely has the presumptive guy to take over the program after Avent walks away, and Chris Hart there ready to go. So definitely interesting to see what happens there. But Joe, so I do obviously want to end this first part by making sure that everybody knows, obviously, the O&G show on YouTube and all major podcast platforms. Am I correct there too, Joe?
Yep. Just search for Ovius and Giglio. You find
Yep.
us on YouTube. You find us anywhere. Apple, Spotify, Google, you name it.
Yeah. And did anybody ever happen to paint an OG on the Hurricanes ice during the season ticket holder?
I don't know. I don't know if that ended up happening or not.
Okay. Yeah. It was funny because last week I was staining my fence and I was listening to that episode where that Ask Joe question came in. I was like, I'll have to keep an eye on that, and I've tried to keep up and I didn't see anything come in, so I was curious. So yeah, no, that's cool. All right, well, with that being said, make sure to tune in for part 2, y'all. Again, we continue more into actually the meat here of men's basketball and football here, and I got to kind of bring back a little bit of old takes from last year too, from Joe Giglio as well, about football as well. So we'll talk about that then. We'll see you off part 2. Go Pack, y'all.